So in this video, I'm going to quickly go through cardiac output, stroke volume, and then we're going to talk about how that relates to exercise and your cardiovascular fitness. And we're also going to be talking about a pathway that the circulation takes, so where it can go in different parts of our body. So starting out with stroke volume is the amount of blood that our heart can basically pump in every minute. So we calculate in milliliters per minute how much actual blood is pushing out of our heart every minute. And it gives us an idea of how much oxygen is reaching our body cells so that we can kind of figure out how much work our muscles are doing or are able to do. So, in order to actually calculate cardiac output, we have to take into consideration two things. So, first of all, we have to know how fast your heart is beating. So, how many times it beats per minute. Beats per minute is the actual units, and stroke volume is the actual amount of blood that your heart can basically pump every single heartbeat. So, we measure this in milliliters. And to actually calculate cardiac output, we use the formula cardiac output is equal to heart rate times stroke volume. So you're just multiplying the numbers together. So with that being said, if we normally have around a stroke volume of about 70 milliliters, and the average resting heart rate for an individual is around 70 beats per minute, to figure out our cardiac output, we would have to multiply 70 by 70, which is 4,900. So our cardiac output of an average person at rest would be around 4.9 liters per minute or 4,900 milliliters per minute. And we have about 5 liters of blood in our body, so that in total. So this means that the total volume of blood basically gets circulated every minute through our heart, okay, to the lungs and then back to the body and keeps going and going and going. About every minute our blood can circulate through our heart. So we had this question, and just to relate it to kind of an actual real life information, we have 3 different individuals with different stroke volumes and different heart rates, but they all have the same cardiac output. So with that being said, who has the lowest resting heart rate? Well, that would be individual C. They are at 35. We also asked about the highest stroke volume. So if their heart's only beating 35 beats per minute, their stroke volume is a lot higher to make up for the fact that their heartbeat only has to beat 35 times. So individual C also has the largest stroke volume, which means that their heart can pump more blood per minute than any of the other individuals in the question. And which one do you think is the best cardiovascular fitness? Well, because individual C has the highest stroke volume, their heart doesn't have to beat as much to keep up with the exercise or movement that they're doing. So that is why individual C would be classified as the best cardiovascular fit, because the stroke volume is the highest. So they've trained their heart to be really, really, really efficient at pumping blood. So with that being said, talking about blood and our heart rate and all that fun stuff, there is another measurement that we can do. So we can figure out our maximum heart rate, which should be the highest heart rate that you get during a really, really all-out physical effort. So like rowing really, really quickly or running on a treadmill or something like that. And to figure out what your max heart rate should be at when you're exercising, it shouldn't get over that, is you take the number 220 and you would subtract your age. So if, for example, you're 16, 220 minus 16 is 204. So your max heart rate shouldn't get over 204, or you're pushing yourself a little bit too hard. So you just got to slow down a little bit. If we're looking at cardiovascular fitness, we just talked about stroke volume being a really good indicator, but it's really hard for us to figure out our stroke volume. So a better indicator is to figure out how long it takes for your body to recover. So if your resting heart rate is normally around 70 and you do a bunch of activity and it takes you 15 minutes to go back to 70 versus 20 minutes, that means that you're more fit when it took only 15 minutes versus 20. And then we have another question here. The better type of exercise you could do to improve your resting stroke volume. Would it be cardiovascular exercise like cardio or strength training? The answer to that is cardiovascular exercise, because it's actually training your heart muscle to become more efficient. Sometimes if someone is just focusing on strength training, it does like just like our biceps or triceps or hamstrings or quads, it builds muscle when you're strength training. So it can actually cause the heart muscle to thicken, which means it becomes less elastic, which means that the heart is actually able to pump less blood. So their stroke volume would go down if you're just doing weightlifting and not doing any cardio ever. So it's important to kind of differentiate with your exercises, not just do one thing all the time. So that is all I had to talk about with the whole cardiac output and stroke volume and all that fun stuff. So now we're going to quickly go through the pathways that we have in our circulatory system. So either we can take the blood to the lungs, or the body system, which we call the systemic circulatory system, or the coronary. So pulmonary is taking oxygen poor blood to the lungs, where gas is exchanged using diffusion, and then that oxygen rich blood that we now have would go to the pulmonary, through the pulmonary veins back to the heart. So it's basically just that one side of our little box diagram, talking about going from the lungs and back to the heart. Systemic is the opposite side of the diagram, so this is moving oxygen-rich blood from the left side of our heart all the way to the body tissues, exchanging gases again. This time oxygen is going into the body cells, carbon dioxide is coming out of the body cells, and then eventually taking that oxygen-poor blood back to our heart so it can eventually go back to the lungs. And coronary is specifically the vessels that go directly to our heart. So if these vessels get blocked by any reason, like a blood clot travels through them, it can cause a heart attack. Okay, the coronary artery and the coronary vein is the ones that supply blood to and from the actual heart muscle itself. Just like any other muscle, it needs oxygen in order to do movement, which would be pumping, which it needs to do literally constantly all the time, every day of your entire life. So it's pretty important that it's getting oxygen from the blood. So this is a little picture showing you guys the box diagram that we drew many days ago. So if I was going to put on the different circulation pathways, we would say that the pulmonary pathway is from the lungs and back, and the systemic is from the body and back. So that is my entire video today. Hopefully you guys have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye.